right, time for another one here. So I figured I would just hit record on this one. I'm still working on this sign here, but I figured I'd do a little ride along, bring you guys along here. I know I've done this in the past where I've kind of shown you how I do things, but I know we got some new subscribers. Appreciate that. Just recently got pushed past 300. That's awesome. Welcome. Super turbo nerds who enjoy watching this stuff here. Appreciate you. So what we got here is like a boundary monument for the city of Indian Wells. We've made these before a long time ago. They have these sprinkled around everywhere. And unimaginably, somebody took one out. That's not going to be good. I hope they're okay. But it no longer exists. So all that's left is the concrete pad. So we need to build a new one. It's essentially going to be an aluminum endoskeleton. I need to make the basic shape of this, but in aluminum. And it's about 2 inches or so, whatever, inch and a half, whatever, shrunk a little bit more down here. And then our guy shows up and puts backer board and covers it in nice stone and tile and whatnot. And then it's going to get reverse channel letters. So I've been chewing on this for a couple days now, and I've got the frame, the preliminary aluminum frame kind of ghosted out. And then what comes next once I have that set up, and I have videos that show this on other signs. But what's next is making the jigs. These are the parts that actually hold these frame structures together, both temporarily and permanently. We use those to cleco those together. I might have some photos there or some video to show you there. And then what happens is they stay there. We cleco them in place, and then we weld them in place, and then those hold the frame together. And then the shear strength comes in once we put the actual face on. We lords that on. We use an epoxy developed just for signs. And that goes on top, and then that gives us a nice shear strength. And this becomes then like a monocoque one-piece system. Is super strong. So, but creating these is always fun. Every sign is different when it's especially when it comes to these angles. So I came up with a macro to do the angles and all that, but I was going to show you my method on that. I do have basically pre-made ones that if it's a 90 like this, I can just go to that and pop that out. So I don't have to make them every single time. But we use a lot of signs that have these angles, and figuring out these angles is always fun. So macros make that a lot easier. So again, I just thought I'd show you the method of my madness, the process, how the sausage is made. So with that being said, let's get after it. So making these jigs, what I do is I just kind of start out with like a rectangle piece, and then I end up just welding them together, and I spin them and shape them to fit the corners or whatnot. So with that, I already have it all set up here. So I just do my rectangular, and I'll just make a little square there, and it starts out. So I do 1.5 inches. So this is a 2-inch thing here. So I make this 1.5 inches, and that gives me a 1/2 inch here to weld. Again, you'll see the pictures of it where you actually tack it in place, but that gives us a little lip to weld here, and then we weld it along here, and that holds that together. So I start with that. Usually around 6 is good. Depending on the size, it could be 5, it could be 8, how strong I want this to be. But generally I start out with 6 on something this big. This is a larger sign. This whole thing's 12 feet tall. So it's a larger sign, and plus it's going to have all that weight, all that stone on it. So it's going to have internal framing for lifting and everything. That's in here. That's the tubing. You'll see that. That's a side view. But so that kind of dictates the size of these. So I start with 1.5 inches by 6. My jiggies, as I call them, my jigs, I like to color code those. I color code everything. So like most of the frame jigs are going to be magenta. You know who you are. What it be. So we have the magenta for that. Most of my stuff I'll color code. Like this part here is going to be red. This part here is going to be blue, and you can see over here, this lets me see a side view. So everything is going to be red for that. So my jigs, I like to keep green because green's hard to see and it gets out of the way. When you use the bright primaries, that your eye sees that. So if you do too much of that primary stuff like this, then it gets very crowded and it's hard to see. Visually noisy, if you will. So the green sort of stays out of the way, and I pretty much can just use that for jigs. So what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll hit down here on my Mr. Goodbar. I'll hit that green, and then I'm going to name it, because right now it's just called a rectangle. I'm going to name it through shape. So right here, that renames it, confirm. Now this is a through shape. What that does is when I go to scrape this later to get rid of all this junk, it's going to leave that alone. When I go to DXF, all these jigs and everything, all the other stuff needs to get out of the way. So anyway, so I do that. And then also what happens is I'll end up using this and then I'll forget and then I don't have anything to work from. So what I'll do is I'll just make a pile of these and just kind of duplicate a bunch of them like that. And then just kind of spread them out so they're easy to get to and all that. There you go. So, because what happens is my fangs will go through the floor and I'll just start working like bam, and I'll start grabbing these and then I won't replenish and then I'll use them all up and I don't have any. So I just make a bunch for myself over here. So then what we're going to do is, like I said, this is kind of in the way now, and I was doing this already, but I put it back so you guys can see what's up. So what I'll do is I'll get this stuff out of the way so I can work, because I don't want this in the way. You can see where I kind of chose this to see where these letters are going to be on the outside of the sign, but I want to make sure they don't conflict with frame pieces. So that's why this is like out of the way here and all that. That's why I chose this layout. But I want these out of the way. I don't need these anymore. However, I need to know where all this stuff was when I come back to put all the holes and everything. So what I'll do is I'll grab the overall piece with that as a reference. So you can see I have it, and then duplicate, and then I'll just take and set this aside, get it out of the way. Boop, there you go. It makes the noise. Boop. So there you go. So now that's out of the way. So now I can get rid of this and just say thanks. And then I can just come back, and I'll bring that back later. So now, so you see it's all cleaned up. So now I can work with this. Oops. Don't mind that. Nothing to see here. Tripod. Okay. So we got that. So now what we're going to do is just take these guys here, and you can see where I've already got these kind of set up. So I'm going to keep working my way down. Now, this guy here can work theoretically here because it's the same angle. But what I've decided to do is, because this is where the letters are, as you saw, when I had the letters here, I need to have this area. So the whole idea is our electrical is going to be up in this area, right up here. We're going to have like a removable door. And then our install guys are going to have to feed the power cables from those letters in this area up through here. Now, having these cross members, right? If you look over here, I have these cross members sort of set up, but you can see where it creates like a tray, and that blocks access. Now, of course, I will put a hole inside this tray to allow access through, but it does minimize access kind of period. Like you'll have a little, you'll have like support here, you'll have support here. So this hole will only be like this big. So I want to have like an open cavity right here to allow full access to these wires. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from this sort of cross extrusion tray to just putting C channels along the face to support the rock and support the face. But I'm going to leave the rest of it open. So this is going to be a different kind of jiggy than this jig. So, and to represent that, I'm going to go ahead and use my extruder machine real quick for you guys. So let's pop this open here. So I'm going to grab the Y by clicking Y here. That's the middle part of the C channel. And then I also know that this is 1.5. We're going to do 1.5 inches because it has to be smaller than the thing is tall. So the two ears of the C channel need to be less than the width there. Then I'm going to hit this button and say make extrusion. Now, normally my extrusions are 090 aluminum, and I like to use a 10% gradient on that. But because I color code everything, these are going to be purple. So that way I know where they exist in the system here. So that way I'm going to just hit purple, and then we're going to turn it 90, and then that matches that. So that's the side view of that. And what I'm going to do is just going to send this over here, and then I'm going to make sure it's the same level. There you go. And then I'm going to go like that, and then I'm going to have it go that way. So from the side view, you can see where, thank you, extruder machine, don't need you. So you can see where these guys are along this face, and it's going to support the face. But from the side, I have all this open now. I don't have this tray system in the way. But we need this tray system sometimes because that's the best support. But right here, this will give me free reign to work in this area for install, to grab those cables and come straight up into this area for our power. So that's going to represent that. But like I said, this is sort of a different jiggy than this jig that represents these guys. So let's get to showing you how to do that. So I'll just grab one of these, and what I'll do is stretch it out. What I like to do is on these C channel ones, I like to have it like that, but it sits inside the C channel. And as accurate as we are, I like to give a little bit of breathing room. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink it by 10 thousandths, or yeah, boom, like that. So that gives 0.01 in between. So it'll sit in there nice. And then what I'll do is I'm going to extend this past a little bit. And well, let's go ahead and make sure that this is about 6 inches in. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to go past a little bit like that. I'm worried about that in a second. You'll see what's up. And then I'll just take a look at it to see. Now this might be a little overkill because I'm also going to have to put a jig here. And similar to what I did here, see the space between these two? These don't need to touch because this needs to sneak through here. So this might be a little overkill. So I'm going to back this off because you'll have a jig here and you'll have a jig here. So this will be plenty strong. So I'm going to go like that. That's good. Now you'll see where the macros come into play. So Corel starts at a 0 here, and you can see up here it's 0, and then it goes counterclockwise. So you'll want to start with this thing 0. But I want to match this angle. So instead of grabbing this and clicking it twice like an animal and doing all this and trying to figure that out, what I like to do is get my macro that I wrote for that, and that's this guy here. This is the node dangler, or node angler, little play on words. And let's reset it so that way it's all set up. There you go. So what we want to do is find a node on the shape that we want to duplicate. Oops, I keep doing that. We want to grab a node on the shape that we want to duplicate the angle. So what we're going to do is going to grab that angle right there. So that's a beginning node for this segment, and that's awesome. So that will be the angle we want. So I'm going to grab it, and this goes green, lets me know it's loaded. And I left the resolution on this to the maximum. That's the maximum digits that Corel sees. So it doesn't do any good to round this up to like 3 decimals because you lose this accuracy, and it makes a difference. It does. So I leave this native. So that's as accurate as you can get with Corel because it goes to that many decimals. So all you got to do now is select this guy, hit rotate shapes, and now it's matching that exact. So it doesn't get any more accurate than that. Now, what I'll do is I'll test fit this and see how far the ears are going in both directions. I want a little more strength down this way, and I want a little more similar to what I got here, right? You want some of this strength so you can get some welds. So this is a little short. So, and probably what I'll do is I'll just match it up like that. So I could do a little better than that. So what I'll do is I'll just set it back to 0, and let's just add an inch and add an inch. So we're going to make this 8 inches. And then just rotate shape again, bam, right back. We'll snap it to it right there. Again, snap to, live and die by snap to. And then, and snap to is not a Star Wars character. And then what you do is just make sure it's in the center. And then you just go for an intersection here. And then that is where that jig can live. And I think that's going to be nice and strong because you'll have that much, you'll have 8 inches worth of tacks to hold this there. And that's going to hold that in place. And that's going to look sexy. So at this point, what we can do is start to lay out the cleco holes. So the cleco holes are 1/6/5s. And what I'll do is because this guy can only go one way, so I don't have to worry about it being symmetrical. What you want to do like on corners like this is you want to make it to where the guys don't have to sit there and try to puzzle piece it. If it's going to be symmetrical, make it symmetrical. That way it can go in, well, it has to go in one way, but it can be mirrored. So you don't have to worry about. So whatever the distance is for these, make sure that it's the same for those. But these are obviously asymmetrical. This guy would be symmetrical because it could go either way. And you don't want the dudes to have to sit there all day. I'll give little clues like this, and they can reference this later. This as well, I make this on purpose asymmetrical. So on this one, I don't have to worry about it. So I can sort of hand place this like that. Looks good. And then I can just put one down here. And I don't have to worry about it being the same distance or anything like that. Then I'll just do a dupe. And I'll just go like that. So, and I have 3 objects. And if I just do vertical and center, that puts this centered in the spacing there. And theoretically, this should be in the center of this, but we're all good. So next, what I'll do is I'll just I'll just cheat and put a little guy there and just make sure we're in the center. And then what we do is, you can see here, I put a guide. This is going to let me know when I create this spar, this will let me know where to trim that piece in order to tuck in, and it misses this flange. So I create these, I call these jiggies as well. But unlike these jiggies, I make these are magenta. So that way I know what's up. Now, theoretically, I could grab this, but I want to show you guys how I do it. So I'll take the polyline and I'll just click once, and then I'll just go for perpendicular, intersection there, and there you go. And then I convert it to jiggy by pushing the button. It renames it and makes it magenta, so that way I can find it later and scrape it and throw it in the bin when I'm done. So then we move it, and then we go ahead and make this guy. I like a 1/2 inch on this one. There you go. So now this is the first cleco hole that will reference this piece to this jiggy. And then we're just going to give it a second one. There you go. That looks like a good spacing right there. So 2 clecos into this jig will hold this piece in, and then 3 clecos, if they want to use 3, will hold this jiggy into this piece. And then that will hold that together, and they can go ahead and, like I say, they'll just assemble this with clecos, and then you tack it all together, and you're ready to go. So now let's make this into a jig. So what I'll do is I'll just come right down here to weld. I'll push a button right here, and it's going to weld them together, and it also sends it to the back of the page. However, I want to make sure this is named as a through shape. I know I already named them through shapes, but I just want to make sure. So if I click this, then I know that also once it welds it, it will name it as a through shape, and that way we're good to go. So I'll just hit weld, bonk, and it send it to the back, and now it's there. And then what I'll do is I can just check. I'll just fill it real quick like that, and I'll make sure there's nothing hinky and it looks good. Then we need to get rid of this extra thing. So all we got to do is node select tool and delete those. And then all of this is straight. So we go like that, tighten it up, and then there's our jiggy. Right? So that's the C channel jiggy for that. And then we don't need it filled right now, so we can just get rid of that. And then hit save. Always save your progress. All right, so now this is where we could sort of duplicate this, but not really, but we're going to kind of duplicate it. But again, this jiggy is specific to a type like this type of thing. So again, we're still making these kind of jiggies. So they're a little different. So again, I'm going to start with, get this out of the way. So I'm going to grab one of these guys. I'm just going to duplicate it just because. And then we're going to stuff it in there. And again, we're going to take that thousandths off each side. And then let's go ahead and get this set up to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 was good. Just like that. Oops. All right. Now we're going to have this extend through in order for this frame piece here to support this, just like I did here. So we're going to cross it and we're going to put a slot so we can slide through, and it's going to support this piece on both sides. So we're going to duplicate this, and we're just going to stuff it through probably about that far, which is similar to that. That's looking good. And then we're going to do some cleco holes. We can go ahead and put one there. And let's do a half inch. There you go. That looks good. I like that. I like that a lot. And then we're going to duplicate this kind of thing going on here. And we're going to go 90. And it's going to bonk against the inside there. And then we're just going to go ahead and center that up. And I want to extend this out probably another inch on both sides. Yeah, it looks good. Now, this guy doesn't need to be this thick. I'm going to match that node. See, I just shortened it and matched that. So that's 1.5 inches. And then I'm just going to put a couple cleco holes on both sides that way. There you go. And then this guy here. Now, this guy butts up against here direct. So, but I need to notch because there's going to be a flange. See, the flange goes this way. So I need to notch this part out. So I need to create one of these again, except this is just going to be square. So it makes it easier. So I can just drag a rectangle. Doesn't matter the size. This is just a guide to tell me where to notch. I move it, get it out of the way. I name it a jiggy so I can scrape it later. There you go. Like that. Move that over. And then we go like that. So this is going to be that. Now I can grab this and cheat. Go ahead and use this. And what you do is you line that up with that. And that gives enough room there. And then what we'll do is we'll grab the nodes and stretch it out to there. Actually, you know what? Let's put it, there you go. Let's put it there. Save. All right. So now that jig, oh, let's weld them. Gotta weld them. We're gonna weld all these guys together. 3 pieces down there. Weld the through shape. There you go. Welded. And then we're going to duplicate this guy. Now, sometimes to save route time and to save whatever, I will combine the jigs and make a big run. So theoretically, I might be able to bring this down as one piece, come over here, and it will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Seeing how long this is, though, we're already at 14. What I might do is actually scooch this up to make room because it's kind of redundant. Plus, this whole frame system is going to be, this side is going to be attached to this frame system. So this whole unit here is going to actually be pretty strong because you can see the red overlaps the blue. And in this whole area here, right in this area, that's going to be attached to the other guy. So we don't really need the jiggies that much for strength. So I might bring that up and then bring this one over. So in the spirit of trying to save time, I think what I could do here, though, is duplicate. Yeah, we don't need you. Thank you for your service. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this, scooch this over, mirror it, and we're going to get rid of this, and we don't need that. And we don't need that. And then let's just make sure everything is straight. And then we can use this as the guide to click into there. Bonk. And then there you go. So this jig now is tucked in where it needs to be. This should work for that. Yep. So, yep, now we can duplicate that and we're good to go. So that's that. So now I have the jigs made for these C channels and those are ready to install like that. So now save, keep going. And so now the jigs, so you can see where this tray actually faces up. So this jig doesn't work for this one because I have these facing down and that's what I prefer, water retention, things like that. But when I'm coming up, the reason why this one's upside down is because this guy is actually sitting on this one. So I flipped it around. So that extrusion, which I don't actually have, I can just mimic that. I'll flip it, wax it, milk it, and I'm just going to match it up there. And I have a 1/1000th tolerance here for the Lord's acrylic, the epoxy right there. So it's going to go right in there. So I have this set up. So you can see where that C channel faces up. It's 2 inches, and that's this C channel there. So these jiggies are different. That's why I went ahead and named this T for top. So this whole little top box is sort of its own system. So that's why I'm going to call that T. So all these jigs up here are labeled T. So the rest of these will be the same. So these will technically all be working on their own down here. And then the C channel actually makes a pretty cool like delineation. So everything with a T is up here. Everything with a C, I'll probably just put like a C on that for C channel. And then everything down here will have its own labeling, but it's its own system because these jiggies will be separate than this whole system. So you got to think ahead because, you know, the guys in the back, you got to have pity, you got to have compassion because, you know, they're going to just this could be a flurry of parts coming off the router. And until I mean, these guys can pretty much suss it out now. Cold-blooded killers is what they are. But, you know, until you've seen it, you kind of, it can be overwhelming sometimes. But after a while, you start going, yeah, I see what he did there. I see what he did there. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's probably good, right? It's about like that. It's about like that. Because these are getting shorter or longer. So there's going to be a little more space, but I still think that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just stretch that to there. And then what we do is we can go ahead and just leave that because we can clean that up so we don't have to kind of match that perfectly. And then we need to match this over here. So I'm going to grab another one of these. Going to rotate because we still have that loaded. See, node angle, it keeps it loaded, which is nice. So once you find that angle, you can load it and keep it. So you can just grab it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put this node, again, snap to, baby. We're just going to snap to that intersection. Click. So now this node, or this guy's that guy. I like that length there. Again, making this asymmetrical so that way it won't be confusing. Do I need 6 on that? Maybe I'll shorten this up just a little bit because I don't think we need all of that. But I'm going to make sure it touches there. Grabbing the node tool. And maybe I'll just give this a bit more extension. There we go. I like that. So now what we do, make sure we got through shape. I'm going to weld it. And then we can go ahead and get rid of these nodes, clean it up, straighten it out. I'm good to go. And now we add in our cleco holes. X marks the spot because you have this line up here and then you have this line up there. So those light blue lines are where the clecos land. So we're going to go ahead and put one here. About like that. How far apart are these? I like to keep around 5 inches, 4 inches. That's good. That's enough. And then we need to create this jig again. So because this was 2 inches, we might be able to get away with using this. Yep, look at that. So I'm going to move it. And then I'm going to move this over half. Bonk. And then I like to put just a little, so I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a node here. And I'm going to add a node there and get rid of that node. And that gives that sort of strength, you know, especially as wide as this is, there's no problem getting the gun in there. Sometimes when these extrusions are very narrow and you close this up like that to give it strength, but then it creates a problem getting the gun in there, the weld gun. So if you can't get the weld gun in there, you can't cut this corner. You can't gusset this corner like that. But when it comes to big old signs like this, I like to gusset a lot because that way it adds that strength. They can actually weld on the outside right here if they want to. They can weld on the inside and it just gives it that much more. But also it makes it asymmetrical. So it's obvious which way this goes if you look at the shape and stuff like that. So that's the benefit of doing it that way. So now that this guy's created, save, by the way, save. Now that this guy's created, what I can do is just duplicate, group, and using this jiggy, it helps me lock in exactly where I need to be. So now I can start to fly because I've already made this. So you just intersection, and that guy goes exactly where it's supposed to be. Double check, make sure everything's lined up good. Always check your work. And then that's it. So that creates those 3 guys. Those are good to go. Boom, thumbs up. These are duplicates, don't need those yet. So now let's recreate this. Now this is a different angle than that. I could theoretically take this and match angles and stuff, but who wants to do that? That's no fun. So let's do that again. So let's grab our pile. Let's grab one of these. Oops, come on now, son. So we want to go ahead and take this and we're going to tuck that into the corner on the inside. Make sure that node's tucked in. Hit wireframe real quick. Ghost mode, good to go. So that's this guy. Now take a look to see. Let's give it 1 more inch that way, just to give it some strength. Okay. And now what we'll do is do our circles. And this is how I make this asymmetrical. So what I'll do is I'll take this guy, go over 3/4. I like 3/4. And then we'll go over like this. I like that. So now what I'll do is I'll take this, duplicate it. Boop, like that. And then we can flip this and make it, which way do we have to go? There's a trick to this. There we go. I think that works. And then if you rotate the shape, nope, not that way. It's got to rotate. Is it that way? No. That's the way. There it is. So this gives you that mirror. Sometimes it's kind of hard to do the math when it's asymmetrical like that. My brain have to visualize it. So we're just going to weld it. Bonk. And we're going to get rid of these extra nodes. And we're going to see how it keeps it bendy. Just got to tighten it up. There you go. Now, group that, and then thank you for your service. We'll get rid of you. This is the jig, but it's asymmetrical because I made it out of one side and brought it together. And so now we just double check again that we are where we need to be. Node on node crime. Boom. That's that corner piece there. Ungroup, and then let's gusset it for strength. So add a node there, add a node there, get rid of this node, gusset it for strength. We like that. Boom. And then for these guys, we're going to do the middle piece there. Now, this guy, we can, right? There's no reason why we can't just rob and steal this guy. We're going to get rid of the T for top, even though I think we're okay to just leave this the way it is. We're going to group it, and then we're going to start lining them up. Oh, you know what we need to do? We need to do a jiggy on that. See, that's what I would use to line that up. So we're going to duplicate this guy here, the notch jiggy. So we're going to take that. I like that's good. Jiggy. Move it over the specified length. There we go. We like that for half. There we go. So now, save, save, save. That's how we do it. And we're going to get rid of the T. No, but we're going to group. Now we can use this jiggy thing to align magenta to magenta. Send it to the bottom. There we go. Does that work? I believe it does. All right, so that takes care of that. This jiggy would not work for that, but we could be able to do what we did where I take this guy, flip it, wax it, and milk it. Ungroup. Let's see, we don't need that. We don't need this. Oops, but we do need those. This one, we don't need that. We don't need that. Okay, do we need that to extend down? Actually, no, it'd be flip it over like that. There we go. Do we need that to extend up and down? Let's see what it looks like. It's kind of a feel thing. There's no right and wrong. Yeah, let's save material, save route time. What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this ear. Oops, no. We're going to get rid of this, and we're going to bring this down here, intersection. We're going to make sure everything is straight. We don't need you. Thank you, node. So that condenses that, but we want some more strength here. So I'm going to extend that out. Alrighty. Don't need that. It's a little long. Don't need that much. Yeah, I like that. So group it. We'll duplicate it. Group it. Save, save, save. Always save. And then we'll just repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. Click. Move over. Down. Let's grab that node right there. Alrighty then. And then this guy actually should work down here if we throw a quick 270 and then mirror it. This guy should link in right there. Move up. Look at that. Ooh, that's that sexiness right there. Ooh, ooh. Look at that. So all the jiggies are done. We just got to do this corner here. But again, this is about as easy as it gets because all we got to do is grab one of these and go 90-90. Woohoo. Because we got a lot of support right here, but I think I'll just give this an extra, 7 inches. It's always a lucky number. Sometimes. 3/4. Looks good. Grab. Duplicate. Rotate. Mirror. Click it back in. and weld. Boom. And gusset. Let's do some Lou Gusset Jr. What? R.I.P. There you go. So that's how we make jiggies in the frames. So, and especially it helps when there's repeat kind of things like that. It makes it a lot easier. So now this is all welded through, or it's going to get use that to, you know, get it all constructed, and then they're going to weld it up. So, but that's it. So I thought I'd just show you guys that, and I'm just going to keep cranking and more of the same. But again, appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoy it.
Check the